we're going to move on to Ethan.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to start out and say thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for coming here and supporting your students or your children, or just the fact or the entire students of your entire school. And most of all, thank you for coming and listening specifically to me. No, I'm just kidding. And as a matter of fact, no one here has actually come specifically for me. Yes, my family's here. They're for my sister. Yeah, it's kind of like a worst nightmare for somebody to be graduating the same day as a younger sister. But I'm just kidding. My two parents eat me and my four siblings equally as much, and they have made it very clear to me over the 22 years I've been alive how much they love me and all of us, and how much they want what's best for us. And I greatly appreciate you both. I love you both. Thank you for that. I want to start out with my journey here, starting in high school. That's when I first heard about this place called Apprentice University. Apprentice University was a place that my older brother went to at the time. I'd heard about it by name only, and that was it. My mom kept coming up to me and saying, "There's a preview day for Apprentice University. You should go to this. You should go to this." And I was just like, no, I'm not really interested in that. At that time, I had my own plans. I had high aspirations. I had a notebook full of my aspirations, and I would work on them daily. Each day, I'd go to that notebook and I'd write down more aspirations, and then I'd go play video games and not work on them at all or anything. I had a YouTube channel, just about starting to develop that, played video games and watched movies, and that was my life. Then, January of 2020, something changed. I was 17 years old. I ended up going. My mom signed me up. It was a mutual signing up. I was able to pick the classes, but she pretty much forced me to go. And that's how I got involved with the Jumpstart program. For those that are more recently introduced to the program, the AU Jumpstart program was a high school program that you could get involved with Apprentice University, in which you could take classes there on Fridays. So this is what I started for the next few years of my high school. One class that really, actually before I get that, there were two classmates there that really stood out to me. Jackson Clanton and Lucas Payton. Jackson Clanton, he was one of the oldest students there, and he was just about aging out at the time. He was there for about 4 months before he graduated, so I didn't really get to talk to him much, but he had a huge impact on my life. He was one of the best apprentices I'd ever seen. He was nice to everyone. He was funny, and he was a leader. He led basically the whole group. He served the instructors, and he respected all of them. He did the homework. He pulled his weight, and then some. And that really. On top of that, he also looked out for the little guy, which was me at the time. He was friendly to me along with everyone else, and that means a lot. The other guy is Lucas Payton. Lucas is a bit younger than him, closer to my age, but he's what I would call the last true AU apprentice. He was the guy that did the whole course. He went through everything, got all the badges, did everything that he needed to do. He did the homework in the classes. He respected the teachers. And he would respect every single one. Everyone, raise your hand, who knows Lucas Payton? And how many of you would say that he was nice to you? He went out of his way. Everyone. He was an incredible apprentice and a good friend. The key takeaway from that is ultimately, if you want to make an impact, love your neighbor. Go out of your way to welcome, encourage, and build them up. One of my first classes I took was digital storytelling with Craig DeHatt. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I was a YouTube guy. I had a YouTube channel. I'd edited videos before. This was right up my alley. Digital storytelling was the art of making videos and was using your phone, which I was pretty experienced with. I thought, I got this down. And ultimately, I had a lot of high aspirations, so I thought, I'm going to make the best final project you can possibly make. The final project for this class was just a video that it was an interview type narrative video. And I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try really hard and do a really good job. But ultimately, I procrastinated. I ended up turning on the first draft the week before the final cut was due to be presented. That Friday, I walked into class to be asked into an empty classroom with Mr. DeHutt alone. There was a moment where I just thought, maybe this isn't what I think it is, but it wasn't. He pretty much just straight up told me what it was. He was rather disappointed in me for turning this thing in rather quite a few weeks late, and he told me something rather striking, ultimately, that as an adult, you're called to more responsibilities. You're called to a higher standing. You have to do what you've been given. And this is a harsh truth for a guy that literally became an adult 1 week before that, but it was a good one. Adults are required to step up to a higher standard and fulfill their given responsibilities. The next class that stood out to me was professional communication with David Osborne. This class was incredible. It was the class that first taught me that I didn't have to write out every single thing I was going to say to present. It was also, in fact, the first class that taught me that I could present with absolutely zero notes, which, first of all, made a huge impact. But the part I want to talk about today is the final project. In this final project, we were supposed to basically just have a presentation that we gave off from memory. I was nervous about this, so I did the work. I practiced nearly every day for 2 weeks to make sure that I would do a good job. And overall, I think I did a pretty good job. But there were a few students there that didn't prepare as much, they didn't do as well. And I just thought, it's a pass-fail course, it's notable that they should probably be reprimanded. They should be pointed out the flaws that they had. And when it came around to it, Mr. Osborne came to them. Every single student there, he had a positive thing to say about them, some growth that he saw, some small thing that they did well, every single one of them. Good leaders can help identify problems and weaknesses. Great leaders can always find the good in people. The next slide I have are my apprenticeships. These were the 3 apprenticeships I had at Apprentice University. First one being Co-Alliance. Co-Alliance was an agricultural resource manufacturer. They manufactured agronomy products, seed, and swine stuff. I had to look up what each word of these meant in the job interview at the time, because I didn't know. But it was ultimately a great experience once I got into it. There was an incredible culture of like-minded people that all loved each other and would just go out of their way for each other. I was on the IT team, so that was the apprenticeship where I learned what IT meant, so getting thrown into the deep end there. But the story I want to bring out here is one of the projects I had. It was you call it an intern project, where it's just a menial task that you're told to do a lot of. And that thing was to go around to every single person in the company who had a company phone and just update it. And so it involved me tracking down over 200 people at the time, just talking to them and asking them to update their product. What this ultimately did for this shy 18-year-old kid at the time was to get out of my comfort zone and talk to people, introduce myself and say what my goal was and tell them how to do it. That was probably the most amount of people I've talked to, nearly probably my entire life, strangers at least. And that really got me out of my comfort zone. And I was able to become more comfortable talking to strangers and getting to know them. And I started asking them other questions just about their lives and getting to know them. And there were some incredible people that worked there. I just never would have known that if I just didn't go out of my way to talk to them. Everyone is someone when you take the time to meet them. The next apprenticeship I had was Precision Point Incorporated. This was the coolest apprenticeship I'd ever heard of. And when I took it, it was probably the coolest apprenticeship I had. It's a 3D laser scanning company that traveled to buildings across America to scan them and create 3D models. And a lot of my work there was traveling across America to scan buildings and make 3D models. So I got to go to Wyoming, Colorado, Washington, all over the country. And it was one of the coolest 6 months of my life. But the story I want to bring out here is December of 2022. This year, I was in Wyoming for 3 weeks scanning a Veteran Affairs hospital. And it happened to end right on the day that capstones were. And not just any capstone day, but a capstone day where I had 5 capstone presentations due, which is a prodigious amount by any standards, to be honest. And so that was one of the first opportunities I got to start managing my time and working on a little bit at a time, and I did a pretty good job. I distinctly remember sending emails in the Colorado airport and then getting on a plane and then arriving in Indianapolis the night before capstones receiving the emails, making sure that our group project was good to go. And I must say, that was thrilling, just constant busyness and working. And then the day came, capstone. And it wasn't like a one time where the first capstone's the hardest and it's all downhill from here. They ramped up. So the easiest one came first, and then they progressively got harder and harder and harder to the last one. But then I went and I worked and I presented, and they all went really well. Then I found myself at 4 p.m. on that Friday, the moment I had looked forward to weeks before that, was being like, that's the time I can finally go home. I've been in Wyoming for 3 weeks. This is my opportunity. I can go home and then just rest. And I couldn't. I was just like, there's something here. I need more of this. What am I missing? And I couldn't figure it out. I just stuck around. I learned later that I was incredibly disappointed. I didn't know in what at the time, but I was disappointed. There was something in that week that I put into that Friday that just it didn't pay off. I ultimately realized it was meaning. I was putting worth and meaning into completing all these works and thinking that there'd be a triumphant conclusion to this long-awaited work that would pay off in some way, but it didn't. I ultimately learned then that I can't put my meaning in the wrong things. You can't find worth in challenging moments in life. My next apprenticeship was Town Post Network. This is a really good one. It's a foray finally into the digital marketing, which is where Vertical Immersive took it later on, so that was pretty nice. Town Post is a magazine franchise in Fishers, Indiana. They have magazines all over the Indianapolis area, actually. And I was doing digital marketing, so social media posts, creating the posts, scheduling them, just working on website maintenance. This is the apprenticeship that I got to meet the wonderful Will Weitzel, who unfortunately is sick. But we bonded well over watching Mike Winger videos over lunch and talking about God and going on walks. And it was a great experience for that alone. But one of the key takeaways I had for this was that most of the work there was just social media scheduling. It was the same task over and over and over again. Well, yes, we always had work to do. It wasn't like I was pushing myself. I wasn't struggling. It wasn't hard. And I sometimes had trouble with that because I always wanted to learn. I always wanted to keep going and do more. So at the time, I'd try to listen to audiobooks or podcasts while I worked to just learn. But then there was one time where I came to a conclusion that hard work is hard, yes, but it's easy to focus on hard work and it's easy to learn from hard work. But then when it comes to the boring, the menial tasks in life, how much harder is it to focus on that? I thought, if I could focus for 8 hours doing the most menial labor, how much easier could I focus on anything else in life? I came to conclude there's worth in doing your best with what you've been given. The last apprenticeship I had was with Vertical Studios. We made this transition around this time to Vertical Immersive, and we started up an in-house marketing studio called Vertical Studios. This was student-led. At the time, when I first began, it was me and Will Hochsteller over there. We both worked hard, and we both had projects. Later on, Montana joined us, along with Austin, right over there. And Matthew, I'd say he joined us, even though he was off and on. But it was just a great opportunity just to hang out. We were spending time together. We had some really good talks. And one time I just thought, this is what college is, just guys hanging out, doing work. And then something changed. Right behind Will, we got Jared right there. He didn't know I was going to talk about him, but I am. We started out just about a bunch of guys hanging out. Jared came in and he brought order to the chaos. Instead of chaotic, he's the project manager. I'd say he managed the projects pretty well. He brought a bunch of procedures and processes into our work, and he taught us things, and he had us manage our time and work harder ultimately. And I think most of us can attest that was a hard time in our lives. We've never been pushed that hard, and we were forced to quantify our work. We had to see exactly how much work we were doing. And for a guy that maybe didn't always do a lot of work, that's hard to talk about sometimes. And it involved with a couple disagreements at times, maybe quite a few disagreements. But I came to realize later that that's the real world right there. It's not just get put in a job somewhere and work in that job. You have to be responsible for yourself. You have to take time. You have to use discernment and wisdom in order to see how much time you're spending on something. And then what he helped me with a lot was my perfectionism. I'd love to just keep working on something and be like, oh, I gotta fix that, I gotta fix that, I gotta fix that. He was the guy that just said, you worked 8 hours on this, it's done, stop touching it. And that really helped. He also helped me in my failures. There are times when I messed up and I was just like, man, I'm trying to be perfect here and I just can't. He was the guy that taught me that we can't all be perfect and we need grace in order to just keep going. And Jared, I appreciate you for that. Ultimately, I just say, you don't gain deep personal awareness and growth until you spend time doing it. Interacting with others in the world, measuring your work against the world's, and amid the pressures and the watchers and the responsibilities you have, to be able to stand in that spotlight and make a difference, and walk abroad among your fellow men, which I think is what Vertical Immersive is all about. I'd ultimately just like to end and say thank you again. Thank you for listening to me in my presentation, and thank you to all the parents here who supported your children throughout the years that they're here, throughout the program, who supported them financially, mentally, with advice and wisdom as my parents did. Thank you for all of that. Today shows you a difference that you've made. Thank you.